Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Avanya Richardson-Miller, Senior Vice President and Chief Diversity Officer for the network. Welcome to our second annual Team Member Resource Group Town Hall with our CEO, Bob Garrett. Our Team Member Resource Groups, also referred to as TMRGs, are one of diversity, equity, and inclusion's most critical strategies. We are proud to host 8 groups today for this event. 90% of Fortune 500 companies sponsor employee resource groups. Diversity Inc.'s top 50 companies for diversity all have these groups. Our recent benchmarking results revealed the best practice that 72% of Diversity Inc.'s top hospitals and health systems have a Latinx and Asian employee resource groups. I'm excited to share that HMH is launching a new Latinx TMRG fourth quarter of 2022 and an Asian TMRG in 2023. This is progress we can all be proud of as we continue to build a more inclusive culture where team members feel a sense of belonging and everyone can thrive. These groups will provide a platform for team members to amplify their voices and experiences, helping to promote cultural awareness, address areas where we have gaps, and drive innovation. At HMH, we believe there's a moral imperative to create a diverse, inclusive, and equitable environment. Equally important is understanding that diversity, equity, and inclusion helps us achieve our mission to transform healthcare and provides a competitive advantage for the entire enterprise. We appreciate your willingness to connect and make a difference. Your support is demonstrated in all that has been achieved and all that we will achieve together in the future. At this time, it is my pleasure to introduce our CEO, Bob Garrett.
Thank you, Avonia. And let me give Avonia a little bit of a shout out. She is doing an amazing job in her role as Chief Diversity Officer. So if everybody can do a virtual clapping for Avonia, please do, because she's been just a great leader at Hackensack Meridian. So thank you, Avonia, for everything that you do. And good morning to everyone, and welcome to the second annual Team Member Resource Group, our town hall. We also refer to the groups as TMRGs. I enjoyed our time together last year. It was a great town hall, and I'm excited about spending some time with all of you today. During our inaugural TMRG Town Hall last December, Sandra Elliott, our Vice President and Chief Innovation and Commercialization Officer, and I introduced the Internal Innovation Challenge. It was focused on safety for both team members and for patients. We challenged our team members to put forward their best ideas. We need a variety of perspectives to improve the quality of care and to ensure a safe environment for our patients and team members. The Innovation Challenge invites team members to, number one, be change makers, also to improve team members' engagement scores, also to generate and develop the most promising ideas. As a part of these efforts, we invited our team member resource groups to collaborate with the Innovation Challenge. They participated to narrow down the top finalists from each region. The TMRGs work with the finalists as subject matter experts in the areas of finance and budgeting for their project, a presentation and pitch development on their project, overall project management, and also clinical expertise on the front line and expertise in the areas of IT and Epic. On October 25th, I had the pleasure of participating in the final evaluation of the Innovation Challenge. 6 finalists pitched their ideas to the Hackensack Meridian executive team and to Hackensack Meridian board members in the Bears Den. All of their ideas were inspiring. The competition was really tough. In fact, the finalists were so compelling that we decided to award all of the team members who developed these groundbreaking strategies. Let's give all of our participants and the winners a round of applause. Now for the winners. Let's start with the northern region. From Hackensack University Medical Center, I want to congratulate Ahmed Ashish. Clinical teams work diligently to prevent patients from developing pressure ulcers. Ahmed developed the time-oriented patient position protocol. For example, From 8 a.m. to 10 a.m., all patients in the unit should be moved to the left side. It enables managers to easily determine if a team member completed repositioning the patient. Also from Hackensack University Medical Center, congratulations to Edna Arguillo. Clinical teams are working universally to reduce opioid reliance for pain management. Hackensack Meridian should invest in strategies to reduce or eliminate the need for opioids for women who have C-sections. Now let's move on to the Central Region winners. I want to congratulate the team from Raritan Bay Medical Center, Kimberly Deverin, Janelle Fletcher, Joan Marie Marinon, and Jane Ramos. The intensive care unit is a high-risk area for fall incidents from power cords. The team developed a cable clip holder to tame the cords. Also from Raritan Bay Medical Center, let's congratulate Jennifer Lee. Adverse drug events are a major problem impacting patient safety. Jennifer developed an enhanced tool, a 24-hour freeze to allow teams to verify orders. Now let's move to the South, our Southern Region winners. From Jersey Shore University Medical Center, Christina Acquaviva, Rebecca Romer, and Jennifer Wonder. Prolonged bed rest in the ICU contributes to generalized weakness, decreased endurance, and skin breakdown. The team developed enhanced protocols for PT, OT orders with all ICU admissions. And from Ocean University Medical Center, let's congratulate Kathleen Scalzo. Hackensack Meridian has protocols to mitigate adverse medication events, but they do not apply to tube-fed nutritional supplements. Kathleen developed a barcode system to enhance patient safety to address this gap. The TMRG's role in the Innovation Challenge is a great example of how we can all contribute in meaningful ways. These resource groups are a tremendous asset at Hackensack Meridian, and I'm so grateful for all of our contributions. And again, let me congratulate all the winners. In hearing their presentations and hearing about the innovations that they're doing on the front line, it made me even more proud to be part of this great organization. The innovation that's coming from our front line is really going to be a differentiator for Hackensack Meridian for many, many years to come. So congratulations to all of you once again. And now I'm going to turn the program back to Avonia.
Thank you, Bob. I am thrilled to welcome our special guest, an amazing father and daughter team. Ellington West is the co-founder and CEO of Sonavi Labs and comes from a family of incredible minds. She is the granddaughter of one of the experts who worked at NASA as a human computer. The team's work was the basis of the noted film Hidden Figures. Ellington's company created Felix, a smart stethoscope and AI-enabled platform that harnesses the power of machine learning to identify and track respiratory abnormalities with the same accuracy as a trained physician. Ms. Ellington brings over 10 years of experience in healthcare business development, market research, and leadership to Sonavi Labs and is overseeing the development of the company's inaugural product line. She is also influencing Maryland health policy as a member of the Life Sciences Advisory Board. Dr. James West is a computer and engineering professor at Johns Hopkins University. His pioneering research led to major advances for sound recording and voice communications. During his career at Bell Laboratories that spanned more than 40 years, he earned 47 U.S. and over 200 foreign patents. West was inducted into the National Inventors Hall of Fame for the invention of the electric microphone. He is a member of the National Academy of Engineering, a fellow and past president of the Acoustical Society of America, and a recipient of the Acoustical Society of America's silver and gold medals in engineering acoustics, the National Medal of Technology, and the Benjamin Franklin Medal in Engineering. Hi, Dr. West and Ellington. We are so excited to have you join us for our second annual TMRG TMRG Town Hall today. And I'm just let me say this is a very special opportunity for me to engage with such dear friends in this way today. My first question is for you, Jim. Jim, as a Black man growing up in the Jim Crow South, certainly you have an incredible story of barriers you've overcome that led you to becoming the inventor of the microphone that we all use today. What has been the major catalyst for your success?
Dr. Miller, that's a very interesting question, and one that I spent quite a bit of time yesterday trying to figure out, because to bring it down to a single point is very difficult, because growing up in the South, one of the most important things was love of family, love of friends. I was thinking about my early education, and all of my teachers were relatives, or at least that was the way they were presented to me. So when Aunt Dorothy said, do something, I had no problem in following up on that. That fundamental or basic education that I got, in spite of the one-room school, the fact that that girls couldn't go to the bathroom because of the lack of privacy, and many things that segregation brought about through the South. My parents saw the degradation in the rural schools in the small town of Farmville, and we moved to Hampton, where the school system was more established and more geared toward Black people, primarily because of, at that time, it was called Hampton Institute. It's now Hampton University. You, of course, are from Howard University, one of our staunch competitors in football, but we'll forgive that point here now. So the love of family without money, without and the freedom that I was afforded to explore came mainly from my grandmother. My mother, in order to pay the state or the government, I'm not sure which, back for her college education, she had to commit to teaching at a Native American reservation for I think a couple of years. I don't remember the amount of time, but she didn't want to take me because of the depressing situation on Native American reservations. Now, coming from a depressed society based on racism, and then hearing there's somebody that is suffering even more from the lack of proper treatment of human beings, really raised a strong point in me. It made me to the point that I could say, well, I have no excuse, because there are people who have far less than I do, who are far more oppressed than I have been. So I have no excuse for not succeeding, especially with the background that I had, especially with the family that I had, in spite of this situation, in spite of not being able to trust the police, in spite of seeing lavish schools for the white society and really poor facilities for Blacks, was something that I observed earlier, but I couldn't let that stand in my way either.
Thank you. And thank you for sharing that experiences and the insight. And important point you said, it's no matter how dire our situations, right? There's usually always someone that's in a worse situation. And, recognizing that despite the situations, we must still aspire to succeed and excel. So thank you so much for that information.
Let me follow up a little bit here too, because that knowledge was a big motivator, but the freedom to to explore was granted by my grandmother, primarily, who encouraged me to look at things for a long time. I mean, this worked for a while, but you see, inquisitive minds begin to do things that are sometimes a little bit on the shady side, like opening mechanical stuff that was working and to find out what's inside and then can't get it back together again. I did that with my grandfather's very nice pocket watch, 105 pieces in it, but I couldn't get it back together working. And so, but that's been my life. That's the life of a 10-year-old. I'm still 10 years old because I still tinker and I still ask what and why.
Mm-hmm. So having that curious mind, which we should all have, but thank you so much for expanding on that. My next question is for you, Ellington. As the CEO of a med tech company that is focused on innovation and someone who is also a young woman of color, what advice do you have for other aspiring leaders?
I think it's interesting that because Jim almost, I think, alluded to it in answering his question. It's that sense of resilience, right? That things are not going to be easy. I think that's the first thing that we all have to recognize, is that you are going to be presented with challenges and unique challenges because of who you are. But because of who you are, you have to see and get through those opportunities, right? And so for me, I think that it is when you are clear on what you're passionate about, when you discover that, when you connect with it, you become unstoppable. When you realize that driving solutions are bigger than you understand the sense of obligation that you have to see it through and to get it done. So I always look at life as, every experience that I've had has been a new tool that I get to put in my toolbox. It allows me to compete at a higher level because I've had to train harder just to be in the room, right? And there's a lot that comes with that. And then it's also just, as a young woman of color, thinking about how important mentors were for me, how important it was for me to see what was possible. So I don't just have this very deep obligation from a sense of the medical community and what we're bringing to market, but more so for every young Black woman who is, budding and walking right behind me. It's so important that the path is clear and that they understand that we have everything that it takes. And I mean, if you really look at the statistics, women, specifically women founders, outpace and outperform male founders. I mean, this is known in all of our investment literature. We make better products. We do it better. And I think that we have to be reminded of that, right? We have to demystify this concept and notion that because we're different or because we are usually the only ones in a room, that we're not tasked with bringing all of that dynamic energy that we have into this space, and to be, as Jim had mentioned earlier, courageous and committed enough to what it is that we're locked into to make it happen, because we will make it happen. We have historically had no choice but to. So it's already in, I think, the DNA.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much, Ellington, for that. I'm going to go back to you, Dr. West. You started your professional career at Bell Labs, which is considered the melting pot that's responsible for thousands of patents, Nobel laureates, and anything from the laser to the microphone, which again, you invented. So as we at HMH focus our intentional efforts to create an environment that fosters innovation right here in our organization, from your perspective, please share what was so unique about your experience at Bell Labs that led to such innovation.
What a question, Dr. Miller, because again, it's a multifaceted question, but where to begin? Okay, the one thing about Bell Labs that everybody did was to keep their door open. If someone from chemistry had a question that they thought or a problem that they thought I could help solve, I had to have my door open to admit those people in, to talk to them, and vice versa. So a collaborative environment is really, really very important. I think generally about lunch. When we go to lunch, there were placemats with nice pictures on one side, and on the other side, it was a blank page, and we always flipped it over so the blank page, because we knew that before lunch was over, we'd have to write something down, or somebody had to prove a point that they made. And it's all right to disagree. In fact, disagreement brings about better solutions. So to disagree, not the way American politicians are today, but to genuinely disagree and have a colleague critique and you accept those critiques is a really, really very important aspect of what Bell Labs was really, one of the things that Bell Labs was really all about. But I chose Bell Labs not knowing its standing alone, because it wasn't standing alone at that time. There was IBM Labs, there was Xerox Labs, there were GE Labs. Many companies in this country were very interested in deep research and coming up with better products. Somehow we got away from that. A lot of the research groups disappeared, including Bell Labs, for that matter, in terms of the size that it was. When I was there were 1,100 principal investigators, and that number is drastically reduced today. Environment is really important, I think, is what I'm trying to say here. An open environment, and where people feel the freedom to be able to talk to each other, to not feel embarrassed if you're wrong, because that generally, in many cases, prohibits people from communicating. I don't want to be wrong. Failure is another point. I like to think of myself living on the edge, and I can fall in and I can fall out. Falling is going to be expected if I'm pushing the envelope, because I am not perfect. I don't have all the answers. But the important thing is that once you fall off, whether you fall in or out, get back on that wheel and keep going. And these were lessons that I learned from my experience at Bell Labs.
Thank you so much for that. And please call me Vanya in this forum.
I'm Jim.
I heard Ellington talk about, being courageous in her previous answer. And in this answer, you just spoke about being collaborative. And I love this open forum space that you're talking about, and the concept of failure. And I highlighted courageous and collaborative because they are a part of our 5 C's that drive our values in our organization. So thank you for that. I'm going to swing back to you, Ellington, for this question. So please tell us about the technology that you're commercializing, and what does it look like from your leadership perspective to take a product from an idea to a regulatory approved commercial product?
Yeah, thank you for that question. And I will answer it in 2 parts. So the first is that what we have created is a device very similar to a stethoscope. I want you to think about it as a stethoscope, in that it listens to the sound of your body, right? In the same way that a doctor is listening with their ears. But what we've done is we allow the device itself to listen to the sounds of the patient's lung and the patient's heart, and to identify abnormalities within body body, in the body system. And it's done based and rooted on acoustics, which makes a lot of sense given Jim's dynamic expertise there. And I think that when you think about someone who's like transformed telephony and the way that we communicate with microphones, it was what else can we do as applied to healthcare that can be equally as innovative and impactful. So for us, we were initially looking at the emerging market. So the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation was just so frustrated with the reality that there was one child dying every 36 seconds from pneumonia under the age of 5, and pneumonia being detectable and treatable. It didn't sit well with the team at Hopkins. And so they set out to say, you know, is there a way that we can, within 40 seconds, determine if this patient actually has pneumonia? And if so, we can move forward with an appropriate intervention. And being able to do that alone was incredibly dynamic and powerful for our team. But where collaboration, where leadership, where thought comes into place here is that you can have something so wonderful that exists in a university. But when you have to think about what has to happen in order to really get it into the hands of the people and the patients and the providers that need it the most, that's where the strategy, that's where the tactic really comes in. And that's where listening and collaborating and being willing to be wrong is so important, because for us, we were solving a really big problem. And then we quickly realized, though, that is that a problem that's also in our own backyard? And if it is or isn't, how do we serve our own, not our own, but how do we serve patients that are here in Baltimore? And so we started looking at things like asthma and COPD, understanding that asthma, is disproportionately impacting children of color, that they're 3 times more likely to die than any other patient population. And we had to say to ourselves, how can this technology that was made for the whole world really apply right here in our own backyard? And that took community leaders. That took us partnering with amazing hospital systems like Hackensack Meridian, but also Johns Hopkins. And we had to say to ourselves, how do we show up? And I think that as a leader, I really had to ask my entire team, what was important to them? What are we all mission aligned? Are we all clear in our understanding of moving the needle in a way that's going to transform healthcare? And I think that that's a very ambitious goal when you think about, the stethoscope, and that it is ubiquitous with, a physician. How do we play in those spaces? And I think that it really came down to listening and wanting to understand what didn't exist, because the most dangerous thing that we can do is create in vacuums and silos. And more often than not, when you think about medical device innovation, it's often a device company in a little silo that says we have the new best thing. I mean, every provider will agree that like EMR implementation was the worst thing that could have ever happened to anyone, because we weren't taking into consideration providers. We weren't taking into consideration workflow. And so for us, it was, how do we learn from the mistakes of others across the board to really come together, collaborate, and drive a meaningful and impactful solution? And so now that we are able to serve these patients that either are suffering or potentially suffering from an asthma exacerbation or a COPD exacerbation, our goal was to say, how can we become predictive of those things and how can we prevent them? Mm-hmm. And another really important piece to this, when I think it comes down to leadership, is making sure that everyone that you're serving, that you've considered what barriers might exist for them that don't apply to you, right? So for us, just thinking about broadband accessibility, even in Baltimore, can we have our pediatric patients utilize the device in the home? Are they set up for that success? And it's the things that other folks take for granted that we had to say, no, we need diverse sample sizes when it comes to the demographics that we're serving and the patients that we're considering in our database. They can't all look the same. They can't all be from the same zip code. We had to be so intentional about, also because we're working in AI, right? So we have to make sure that what we're putting in, what we're training is coming from a diverse base. So for us to be able to rely on artificial intelligence coupled with acoustics to really help us understand what's happening in a patient's body, to be able to, if you were in your home and you're a chronic respiratory patient, for your doctor to be able to in real time hear the sound of your heart, hear the sound of your lung, that alone is transformative. When you think about rural Americans who don't have access, who just can't go down the street to their clinic, to their facility, to their hospital system, we wanted to make sure that they had a path of connection to their providers, right? And then more importantly, we wanted to make sure that we could monitor them and get involved and introduce those interventions when need be. But in order to do that, we had to take into consideration every single person's challenge, and we're still learning. We thought that we had figured it all out. We thought that we'd gone down this, extreme checklist and said that everyone anywhere should be able to use this device. And very quickly, we learned that our directions needed to be written in a way that couldn't exceed a fourth grade education, right? So it's all of those things that are so important that I think that people often don't consider. And that's where the learning opportunity is, and then to listen to your team. So I think that the road is long. And if I ask myself, if I knew then what I know now, would I have done it again? And the answer is absolutely yes, 1,000%. But as you're learning how to traverse these spaces, you have to surround yourself by the right folks who know exactly what you don't know and where those pitfalls are, because everybody's vulnerable when they're trying, I think, really change the world. So.
Thank you for sharing those insights. And one thing that's clear to me on that response is how much health equity, the lens of health equity, has been embedded throughout your leadership process in this space, and in the healthcare industry right now. That is like a pressing and priority question from everywhere in healthcare right now, is around the lens of health equity. So thank you for sharing how that has played a role in your experience. So Dr. West, I'm going to call you doctor since you're calling me doctor. All right. So Jim, my final question is for you. At a young and cool 90 years of age, first, let me say you are amazing and still actively innovating. What contributes to your ability to continue to innovate, and what can our community in HMH do to foster more innovation?
The ability to, let me do it by just describing how I got involved in the project that led to the smart stethoscope that Ellington talked about. I attended a seminar, and it was at the Bloomberg Public Health Division of Johns Hopkins University. And in the seminar was about collecting data under the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation on pneumonia. Pneumonia is a curable disease, yet a lot of people die from pneumonia. What's the problem here? The problem is having enough trained people in the world to be able to listen to a standard stethoscope and come up with a solution. Well, the Bloomberg Public Health was moving in that direction. The only difference in what they were doing was that they were using electronic stethoscopes to record the results. They sent people in the field who were reasonably trained to put the stethoscope on the chest of an infant, hit a button, record the data. The data was then shipped back here to Bloomberg and Baltimore, where experts sat down and listened to the data and determined the condition of the lungs of the people. It turned out that less than half the data that they collected was usable. And the reason that it was unusable was because of noise contamination, the fact that stethoscopes have to have a very quiet environment in order to be effective. And in the rural clinics where babies are crying, people are talking, overcrowded situations are on the street corner with cars and things going by, which I heard in the data that I got. And my response when I heard that was, we should be able to do better than that. This intrigued me to the point that I want to find a solution. Well, I went back to my students and we thought about this for a long time before doing anything. And then we looked at noise canceling headphones, which I'm sure many of you most of you have experienced. This works very nice. but it's a simple problem relative to what I wanted to do. You see, you have a closed volume, nothing is moving in that volume, everything is stable and stationary. But in the clinic, noise sources move, cars move, baby cries off on the right, a baby cries on the left. How do you adjust for this? Well, we had to generalize the noise suppression algorithm to be able to track noise sources. This worked so well that not only did we get clean data, but once you have clean data, you can begin to talk and think in totally different directions. How can I use artificial intelligence here to help solve this problem? And that is basically what we were able to do. So you see through that explanation of the chain of events that led to the product that Ellington is marketing. And I think that explains to you how I approached those problems and how the solution came about. And this is not atypical. This is typical of the way we work. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for explaining that process to us. And so I want to thank you, Jim and Ellington, for this very stimulating conversation. We appreciate you taking the time to be with us today and for sharing your thoughts and your experiences and your advice. And we'll invite you back a little later to join our CEO to address questions that had been submitted by our team member resource group. So at this time, I'd like to invite Sandra Elliott to say a few words about the TMRG Team Member and Patient Safety Innovation Challenge.
Thank you, Ivania. Innovation is sometimes seen as a solitary effort of one person, when in fact, the most successful innovations are those that were developed by the input of many people from various backgrounds, work experiences, and cultural influences. Our goal with the TMRG Innovation Committee is to engage team members throughout the organization in identifying innovative opportunities and to assist other team members in ongoing development of those ideas. The TMRG Innovation Committee is fantastically diverse and engaged group of team members who are committed to making a difference in our work environment by bringing their unique and different perspectives to the forefront of all we do. We are excited to have such a collaborative group to assist the team members further develop their ideas and aid in the preparation of each of the finalists to present to the Bears Den board.
Thank you, Sandra. And let's give her a round of applause. She does a great job for Hackensack Meridian. It was really great to hear about the TMRG's participation in the Bears Den Challenge. Really amazing work that was done. Now I have the pleasure of really introducing two great people that are at Hackensack Meridian. Jimmy Love, a member of the Young Professionals TMRG, and Nadine D'Ambrosio, who is part of the Women in Leadership TMRG. Welcome to you both. I want to thank you both for being here and for all of really your hard work on the Innovation Challenge subcommittee. I know it took a lot of hard work and a lot of teamwork to make it so successful. I'd like each of you to really share your experiences with the challenge. Please let us know how you prepared the team members for this challenge, and whatever else you think might be that folks might be very interested in hearing about in terms of this whole process. Jimmy, can we start with you?
Sure. Well, good afternoon, Bob, Sandra, Nadine, and all the attendees watching today. I've been very fortunate to represent the Young Professionals Team Member Resource Group in several network campaigns over the years. And actually, I'm not sure if you remember, Bob, but my video from last year, I recommended that a team member should definitely seek out participation in Team Member Resource Group, because you never know where it could take you.
I do remember it, and I think your message was heard very well.
I mean, because look where we are today. I'm sitting on a panel with the CEO, recapping our successes from last year. We have such a diverse network with unlimited potential of innovative ideas to make HMH a safer place for employees and patients alike. Hannah Garibaldi and I lead the Young Professionals Team Member Patient Safety and Innovation Subcommittee, which immediately infused perspective into the Bears Den Challenge. We began simply evaluating the potential of submissions from across the network, and let me tell you, we have a very adept workforce with some great ideas. After the first round of evaluations, I was asked to remain involved as a subject matter expert. I was able to work directly with the innovators, fine-tune their proposals for executive review by lending my operational and clinical expertise in pharmacy, Epic, and healthcare in general. So I just wanted to add congratulations to all the finalists and winners, because we came together to achieve a common goal, and I feel that all who were involved were winners. And I want to thank all of you on this panel, Al Baker from the Department of Innovation, Barbara Graham and our partners in DE&I, and also all of you attending today, because you are the change HMH wants and needs to continue to deliver the best care to our diverse communities.
Jimmy, thank you for those comments, and thank you for your leadership. I only wish that I could be called a young professional again.
You can.
No, yeah, I don't think I'm at that point in my career.
It's funny you say that. The young professional has nothing to do with age. It's where you are, with your perspective in your professional career.
So if I have a young perspective,
Yes.
all right, I might still be in.
You're a member already.
Thank you. Thank you, Nadine.
Thank you so much, everyone, and congratulations to all the winners. So as the vice chair of the Women in Leadership Mentoring Committee, it was really an honor for me to be asked to be a subject matter expert for this challenge. So I actually approached this from several different aspects. I was also one of the inaugural winners of the Bears Den in 2020.
Congratulations.
The Compassion Cubby, yes, we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But from the strong women leaders nurturing perspective, it's really wonderful to work for an organization that supports that and nurtures it. And I was thrilled to learn that 10 of the 11 finalists were women.
Wow.
So, and I always remember your story about Sister Mary Jean, that she was one of your original mentors and
was my
inspiration for healthcare.
original mentor for
right?
sure. Yeah.
Absolutely. So for me, I was really honored to be able to share my expertise from 30 years in healthcare. I've always been in a sales or marketing perspective and aspect. So to bring my deep expertise to all of the finalists and to be able to not only guide them and be an ear for them, I was able to let them know what's worked for me over the years.
It's so great to bring more women into leadership and into these types of innovation challenges. It's really amazing. It brings such a more rich perspective to our organization.
I really encouraged all of them to know what their why was. Why are you bringing this
Yeah,
to be?
absolutely.
What's your pitch? And also to really personalize it, to make sure that the human aspect of why this idea came to be and who it affects. That's such a critical part of what you want to put forth, clearly, concisely. So it was really an honor to work with them.
Well, that came across in the presentations because you could hear their why, and you can really sense their pride, and I think they recognize the impact that they're going to have on so many people and their lives.
Yes, and to have so much passion behind it.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
just the scope of the ideas, it's so widespread, right? Some of the things where you can't even believe that, some things seem so simple.
Right.
And it's just so impactful to hear
That's great.
what's behind them. So, for me, winning the award 2 years ago was thrilling, to be on the other side of the process, to work with Al and Sandra on the contestant side was wonderful.
I'm feeling that innovation in our DNA right here.
Absolutely.
it's great.
And to have the program that we did. So we won for the Compassion Cubby, which is the clothing donation program.
Yes, I remember that.
It's grown
I
tremendously.
was going to ask you. So I know it started off fairly small, but it's really grown in leaps and bounds, right?
It has. So the original intention was to ensure that patients leaving the medical center could go home in clothing. What it's grown to, because of the generosity of our team members, we're not only able to help patients, we're able to help team members in need, which there have been many over the past couple of years, but we're able to give to the community as well. We work with 5 local charities, local to Hackensack. We have so much clothing. It's incredible. So the impact is so great, not only for the patients and families, but the team members that are able to give something like that to a patient, give that beautiful layer is incredible.
And I'm thinking about, just the last couple of years with COVID and some of the impacts that COVID's
Yes.
had on our communities and some of the hardships people have had to live through. This program is more and more important than ever before, right?
It's helped so many people. It's hundreds. And so many of our team members, one of the things that we are so honored to do, there have been team members who've lost their homes, for various reasons. We've had at least a dozen fires that have destroyed team members' belongings. They have nothing. They can actually come to the Cubby I manage it out of our office in the research building, and they can just kind of shop in there. It's amazing.
That is
and
great.
they do it in privacy. So I say, you can come,
Yeah.
I'll close the door, you take what you want, and you can go. So, these are people that have nothing.
Yeah,
So it's just really
I always think
impactful.
of, Hackensack Meridian as kind of a city unto itself, right?
Yeah.
So, we celebrate our triumphs, but there's, tragedies that happen
Yes.
with our own team members, our own family members, if you will. And this is one way we can help them. So it's great.
It's wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you to everybody.
And now, questions from the Team Member Resource Group.
Great, thank you. So Bob, our first question is from the Abilities Team Member Resource Group. What is our most important role that the Team Member Resource Groups have had on our mission to transform healthcare?
Well, thank you, Marie. That's a great question. A major advance that the resource groups have made is helping the network really to enhance health equity and our diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. Through their innovative ideas, we're able to really develop and operationalize processes that support our strategy, which is focused really on 5 domains: cultural competency training being the first, data collection stratification and the use of that data being another area. Dimensions of team member and physician well-being, very, very important, particularly during these days where we're still coming out of COVID and struggling in that sense. Diversity and inclusion and leadership and governance, also a very, very important area and a top priority for our program. And also to strengthen community partnerships. We've recognized, particularly since COVID, that we need to make sure that our partnerships in the community are really serving us well to really address some of the questions, particularly around health equity. Very, very important. So the resource groups were very instrumental in helping us achieve the human rights campaign, the Healthcare Equality Index leader, and top performer designation for 13 of our network hospitals. Through our health equity group with the TMRGs, we are creating an environment where everyone belongs, addressing and eradicating health disparities to provide appropriate care for all communities we serve and enhance the patient experience. And I'm really thrilled that we were able to institute through a partnership with a digital partner. We were able to institute a screening tool where we're really identifying people who are at high risks of not staying healthy because of maybe one or more of the social determinants of health. We think that's going to go a long way in closing some of the gaps in health equity that we're seeing today.
That's great. So we have our next question from Barbara.
Yes, the next question is to Ellington, and it's coming from our Pride and Allies Team Member Resource Group. As a woman of color, can you tell us about your experiences with sexism and racism within the business and technology communities? And how did you face and overcome them?
That's such a wonderful question. And thank you, Barbara, for asking it. It's so important as we think about our own strengths and what we have in our own toolbox that really allows us to grow and to be successful as an individual and as a leader. So I think that it would be, I would be discrediting my experience if I didn't focus on what some of those challenges have been and what I have experienced. But I also like to reframe it and really look at it as an asset because of the forced grit that is required to be able to traverse those very difficult spaces and opinions. And I think that what you have to realize is that you as a leader, as a woman of color, you are there for a reason. You're there to be at the table to present different perspectives that can really promote incredible change, necessary change. So I think that while it is, of course, challenging to be a young woman of color as the CEO of a med tech company, I think that I have to look at it as just such a larger opportunity. And that's my advice and encouragement to all women and all people of color who have to say to themselves, why am I being looked at differently? Why are these barriers being so strategically at times even placed in my way? And look at them as an opportunity to just grow tremendous strength. Because what I've realized is that I can do exactly what someone else who doesn't look like me can do, but I do it differently. I do do it better because I've had to. And I think there's that level of excellence that's also required, and call it a symptom, right, of it, but it almost creates a better, stronger end product. That's what I believe.
Thank you.
So the next question is for Dr. West. Dr. West, this question is from our Black Team Member Resource Group. Which patent do you hold that you're most proud of?
That's a really very interesting question, simply because I haven't put any real value on the patent itself, but more so how it affects human beings and how it affects the public. Let me just say one thing before I go on to follow up on some of the things that Ellington said. Some years ago, I served on a committee for the National Academy of Engineering. And the point that they wanted to find out was, what does diversity mean to technology? And what they found is that the more diverse the group, the better the end product. I was reminded by an executive from Ford Motor Company who designed the minivan that didn't sell until they brought in a diverse team of designers who then designed the best minivan, best-selling minivan anyway, at that time. Now, let me go back to your question. The electret microphone, which is ubiquitous in almost all communications systems, of course, changed the world. And it did, not just because it's a different microphone, but it was a better microphone in that coding became possible, which makes your cell phone work. Without coding, there's not enough bandwidth in the world to transmit and receive as many conversations that go back and forth. It was the electret microphone that enabled that. So I'm very proud of that. But that was 40 years ago, maybe a little bit more. What I'm very proud of today is the work on increasing the capabilities of the modern stethoscope, in other words, to make it smart, to make it do things to assist the medical profession beyond just transmitting the sound from the body. And what we've done there is to use artificial intelligence and machine learning to create a stethoscope that can detect pneumonia in infants with the accuracy compared to professional people. So I'm very proud of that also. And there's an array of inventions. I think I have about 70 US patents and over 200 foreign patents. And there's a lot of stuff in between, but those are the two end points in terms of my intellectual property.
That's quite fascinating.
Well,
thank you so much.
I want to just say thank you for sharing that, and certainly with the stethoscope discovery, that's gonna make a difference in terms of our efforts to really improve the health of our communities in such a big way, whether it's on diagnosis or treatment. So thank you for that, and I think those are the kinds of innovations that will really transform healthcare for the future. So appreciate it so much.
So we'll go to our next question, which is from the Young Professionals Team Member Resource Group. And this question is for you, Bob. How does HMH ensure that talented young professionals in our organization are given the tools they need to set themselves up for leadership roles in the future?
Well, thank you. That is a great question, Marie. One of our network goals that really has been to the very top is to have an intentional focus on advancing a diverse talent pool to drive innovation and growth in all the communities that we serve. Our entire network will actually receive unconscious bias training by the middle of 2023, which I'm really excited about. We started that, and I think some of that came from the Day of Understanding and some of the feedback that we got. And when we kind of do, for those of you who are not familiar, the Day of Understanding, we kind of take a time out at Hackensack Meridian and we have crucial conversations, maybe some difficult conversations about race and racial justice. And some of the output from that led to the unconscious bias training that we set up. So I'm really excited. We have 36,000 team members. We're going to have all of them trained in unconscious bias by the middle of next year. And I'm also very thrilled to announce that our board as well has agreed to the training. And actually, so far, those that have gone through it have enjoyed it and have gotten a lot out of it. So the goal is to get all of our board members trained by that time as well. But we've also done some other things. We've modified our executive compensation program to include diversity goals for leadership. I think that's really important. We were one of the first healthcare organizations to do that, and I think it keeps everybody's eye on the ball and making sure that it's a major goal that we have a diverse leadership team that reflects the communities that we serve. We also have several talent pipeline programs that will help team members advance into leadership. And I'll just mention a few. They include participation in team member resource groups, which support professional development, or for team members an opportunity to take on voluntary leadership roles to enhance their experience. We also have a Pathways to Resources for Inclusion, Success, and Equity. We call it RISE. It's a leadership development program. We have a peer mentoring program that's open to all leaders, managers, and supervisors. This is assigned to all leaders as part of our committed coach philosophy and strategy that we rolled out last year. And then, of course, you guys know I like to break news, right, at these town halls. So we have two new programs that I'd like to announce that are breaking some news at Hackensack Meridian. And this will really enhance our leadership pipeline programs for diversity, equity, and inclusion. One is a aspiring leader certificate program, which we are launching this quarter, the fourth quarter of 2022. It's a 3-month self-selected open enrollment leadership program. Team members will sign up and complete this program through our Success Factors learning management system. And we're going to stress cultural competency because it's embedded in the certificate program. So I think it's really going to be an important new program that I'm excited that we're rolling out. So that was a little drum roll for the first one. And now the second one that we're going to, part of the breaking news today is that in 2023, we're launching an open enrollment mentoring program. And any team member can sign up for this mentoring, which is really going to be, I think, very well received. It expands our mentoring opportunities dramatically throughout the network. And we look forward to many more team members participating through the open enrollment plan. We also have some other programs and resources, I think, that help advance folks through the leadership positions. One is an administrative fellowship program where we're attracting leaders from outside, potentially new leaders from outside the organization, those that have recently graduated from programs throughout the country, with a real eye on trying to attract diverse candidates to that fellowship program. Second, we're providing tuition reimbursement for college and even some certificate programs. Again, I think which will attract potentially some diverse leaders moving forward. And then we are just in the process of implementing a loan forgiveness program for nurses, which I think, again, will help us and try to get nurses from, particularly from some of our underserved communities that might need the help of a loan forgiveness program. And in return, they will work at Hackensack Meridian Health and hopefully advance into leadership positions potentially within nursing or beyond that. So I really do think we have a great mix of programs and tools to help young professionals and team members develop as leaders. I'm very excited about how we're adding open enrollment programs that are self-selected by our team members. So more and more people can participate. And that's what it's all about, is to get more and more people involved. So really developing our own style, focusing on good leadership skills will really put Hackensack Meridian in a position to maximize our success in the future and hopefully maximize the success of that diverse talent pool that we have.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing. That's exciting new leadership development programs.
Yep.
Exciting.
A little breaking news.
Yes, yes.
Definitely excited. So our next question is to Ellington, and this is coming from our Aspiring Women Leaders Team Member Resource Group. Although we as aspiring women leaders come from many different backgrounds and have expertise in a variety of fields, we all strive to grow and move forward in our respective chosen careers. From your vast experiences and connections in the business and medical community, what do you believe are the overriding traits and strengths aspiring leaders should develop in order to grow in any field, company, or position?
What a wonderful question. I think that the most important piece of leadership and growth is the desire to learn more, to always educate yourself. And what I believe in is that I love to be let's call it like the dumbest person in the room when it comes to who I surround myself with, but in terms of my team, right? Is that I'm always learning from someone, and I always know what I don't know. And I think that that's probably the most valuable thing, is that we can all at points get stagnant in our growth in our career, but we have to constantly and perpetually push ourselves to grow and to learn. And I think that, in even the programs that were just mentioned that are available within this wonderful community of, further education and mentorship, those are the two important tools that I believe are required to always stay on your toes and to be a dynamic leader. And I think that what is secondary to that, if not actually a tied first, is the ability to listen and to be compassionate. And I think that that's even also very clear in how leadership is run at your institution. You just said that you have listening sessions, right? Where you stop everything and you say, how can we learn from each other? So I think that it is that beautiful blend of listening, empathizing, and a constant continuous desire to learn and to surround yourself with people who know more than you. I think it's really that simple of a formula, and that's what I've committed myself to.
Great, thank you.
So the next question is for Dr. West, and this is from our Veterans Team Member Resource Group. What are successful leaders today missing?
What are successful inventors missing today? But not only is that an interesting question, but a question that we have not addressed in the way that it should be. You in the hospital network know what COVID-19 did to disrupt you, not from the standpoint of patients, but from the standpoint of supplies. Mm-hmm. This is a very frightening event in that masks had to be declared non-useful in order to make sure that medical people had enough to serve their purpose. We can't go through that again. We've got to take the lessons from COVID-19 and bring them into the 21st century, in that this country can no longer depend on foreign production of instruments, of material that you need to carry your work further. We can't afford to fall into that trap again. Therefore, the lack of support to foster those inventions, those things that we think about, I believe is a serious problem. Let me see if I can point to a example. I had one in my mind, but it disappeared.
And I just want to clarify the question too, is what do we need from leadership? So not just inventors, but also just leaders in general.
Right, but I can approach this only from the standpoint of what I know and what I'm interested in. I agree that I'm narrowing the scope of the problem, but in dealing with that part, the people that do the work day by day know what's wrong with the method that we're using to do it. What needs to be done is that people in your community need to have the opportunity to follow up on some of the new, quote, inventions that they have in their minds. And if they do that, this not only improves the quality of the services that you deliver, but it creates innovative tools to help you do your job better. I hope that answers the question. It's a difficult one to address. This is the reason that I cut it down to what I know best.
I really, if I could, Dr. West, I really appreciate your comments because, we try to take the lessons learned from the pandemic and try to apply them in a new way. And one of the things that I could not agree with you more about the supplies and the personal protective equipment and really depending on some of the foreign countries for those supplies. And we formed a collaborative. It's called Allspire, and there's 3 health systems in New Jersey, 4 in Pennsylvania. And one of the initiatives in that collaborative is to develop our own personal protective equipment. So, to your point, I think we want to take some of those lessons learned and say, let's not have to go through that again, where people literally had to scour the world. And, and I give our supply chain team an enormous amount of credit. They work 24/7, literally for weeks. I think they're still catching up on the sleep from 2020. And they did a great job, but we shouldn't have to, as an individual health system, but as a nation, we shouldn't have to go through that again. So I appreciate your comments very much.
So Ellington, we have another question from a team member resource group, multicultural. As your company has a majority of women in engineering, please elaborate on the pillars of your company that support diversity, equity, and access for all people.
I think that creating a space that is accessible was one of the foundational priorities that I had in starting this company. I think that when I think back to what Jim said in the example of, Ford Motor Company, of what it really takes to make the most innovative and brilliant solutions, it comes from so many diverse spaces of thought, of gender, of socioeconomic status, of geography. And so when we were thinking about solving a multidimensional problem, we knew that we needed representation from across the board to solve something so dynamic. It takes dynamic solutions and solution makers. So when I set out to determine who should be part of this team, my goal really was to ensure that no one looked like the person that they were sitting next to and that no one had the same life experience. So we, as just people that have pulled together engineers, it's not even just from that engineer landscape, it's that our solution is the intersection of engineering and medicine and business. And so at that point, you have to have really creative and flexible minds to work with, right? And so I think that as we constantly hunt, because I think we all can also be honest about the war on talent, right? It's so hard right now to find people and to hire people. We have great retention, but it's the finding folks that's been so hard. And so for us, we were very intentional in creating these pipelines between us and universities. We had this really strong focus on public-private partnerships because we knew that if we really wanted to push a powerful solution, again, it had to come from everyone in every discipline. So for us, I think that creating a stronger pool and base of female engineers is really a task that we all should be focused on, because again, that's what feeds our pipeline. But without question, it's not just your traditional training, right? Because something else that we've really learned recently when we look at some of our software engineers is that I'm not finding them coming from your traditional 4-year university either, right? They can be, 2-year certified with the most brilliant mind. And so I think it's about also how you change what the criteria is that you're setting for how inclusive you really are as an organization. And that's also really expanded opportunities for us in dynamic ways. I hope that answers the question.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. So this question is for Dr. West, and it's coming from our Women in Leadership Team Member Resource Group. What are some things that you have done to support your daughter as a woman in leadership to be successful?
Everything. To be selfish.
Love that answer.
But I can't take that. I cannot take that credit. One of the things that in my personal development, I had the freedom to explore, the freedom to look beyond the horizon, and encouraged to do so. The process of becoming independent in that world means that you have to be prepared, because you have to be prepared for any question that comes up. So during her early life, we spent hours together tackling problems. We spent hours together at museums, especially museums of science. And it doesn't mean that she majored in science and university, but she sometimes wished she had, based on the problems that she's trying to tackle today. The important point here, though, is that we have to take our children seriously. We have to make sure that whatever knowledge, whatever background, whatever basic information that we have, that's transferred to the children. This goes beyond that for me. I have four women graduate students in my group, and it's pretty close to at least half the students that I had. Now, many people look at educating women as a flaw because they are the only ones that can bring about a new generation. And this is perceived in many cases as a handicap. It's a virtual necessity as far as I'm concerned. Women can compete if they get their heads around the fact that they can. This is one of the most difficult things that I have found with my students. I didn't see this too much with Ellington, but in many cases, our female students do not possess the aggression that they need in order to get their points across. And so I stress this in my students. I stress this within Ellington, to be complete in your answers, to be explicit in the remarks that you make. Do not be frightened by an all-white male audience.
That's great advice.
Thank you.
Great advice.
Thank you for sharing that.
So I think I get to ask you guys the final question here, and first let me just thank you for being here again, and for your comments thus far. We at Hackensack Meridian, we have in our vision statement that innovation is in our DNA, and certainly it's in the two of your DNA. I know that for sure. So I just wanted to I'd like you to give me some advice from both of your lifetime perspectives and experiences about, and Jim, you mentioned before that, the final product, of course, in innovation is that much more successful if we can get, diverse talent involved in the discovery process and in innovation. And certainly, both of you have talked about, your perspective, and certainly from one CEO to the other. If you could give me some advice, Ellington, as well. I think that we have a culture of innovation, but I think what I want to do is see if we can really marry it up more with our diversity, equity, and inclusion program to encourage more diversity, because I do truly believe, my heart of hearts, that we will have a better product. We will be able to provide better services. We'll be able to connect with our communities that much more. So if you could, from your own perspectives, give me some advice, and when I say me, I mean the leadership at Hackensack Meridian, some advice on how do we do that? I think we got a good start with that, with having a culture of innovation. I think there's so much more we can do. Maybe you could think about some practical areas to advise me to move this agenda forward. So whoever wants to start.
Your points are very well taken. I discovered that I'm different, even though I have the same training that my peers had at Bell Labs. I could never figure out for a while why, in brainstorming, the white males would lump over here because there were no females at that time. And I was an extension on that in the other direction. In other words, my thought process was somehow different from the rest of the body. But when we finally came to a solution, I didn't win, they didn't win, the solution was somewhere in the middle. And if it were not for me, I would not have drawn that point out or moved the needle, I guess is the best way to put it. Well, the needle, in moving that needle, raised in a question within me. Why am I never or seldom in agreement with the majority? Because even though we have the same training, we bring more than that training to our thought process and what we do. It's a product of our total life. I was born in Virginia in the South, very, very segregated. This had an influence on me, on my thought process. White people don't have that because fortunate for them, unfortunate for us, but we have to take the value from that experience to a positive direction and not a negative direction. And that's what I try to do. And I think this is what keeps me not only current, but still provocative in terms of my point of view.
That's very well said. And, that helps me a lot in terms of that perspective. And I think that's something we ought to think about when we're really rolling out and trying to enhance innovation throughout our network. I think that's a very important perspective. So thank you. Ellington?
No, if you don't mind, I can do this or don't do this. So you tell me. I just wanted to tell you the story. Have you heard of the real McCoy? Many of you have heard that expression. Do you know where it came from?
I don't know where it came from. I have heard the expression though.
Okay, I think you'll find this interesting because Elijah McCoy was an oiler on the railroad. I know about this because he's inducted in one of the 30 or so Black inductees into the National Inventors Hall of Fame. McCoy wanted to go to further his education. He and his father saved enough money for him to attend college, but no school in this country would accept him. So he went to England where he earned a degree in engineering, came back to this country, presented his degree to his boss on the railroad. The boss gave him his oil can and mop back. This would have discouraged me, I can tell you, but it didn't discourage Elijah McCoy because what he did was to invent a coupler that automatically oiled the bearings on the wheels while the train was moving. It didn't have to stop as it did for him to have mopped the thing. Well, many people tried to copy what Elijah McCoy had done, but it didn't work as well as McCoy's did. So when people wanted automatic couplers to automatically oil the bearing, they said, I want the real McCoy. That's where that story came from. And I hope you see the value of this story in terms of your current directions.
No, that's a great story, and it's a keeper. If you don't mind, I'm gonna use that story in the future because I think it's very instructive and really shows really the value of resilience and persistence and being able to overcome so many barriers. So thanks. I'm definitely keeping that one.
Good. I think, it's about exactly what I already sense that's happening at Hackensack Meridian. I think that you all have this strength and passion and commitment to really educating and exciting folks about their individual power as it relates to innovation. And I think that that is something that cannot be lost, because what, at least in my experience, why I've been able to grow in the way that I have and to lead this company has been because I've always been told that I can, right? There's always been a path. There's always been clarity. There's always been this level of confidence that I've been taught to have in myself, that I think if I was just traditionally, maybe had a different set of parents or was in a different, academic environment, that I wouldn't have had the sight or the thought that I could. And so that's why I think that the foundation of what you all are creating is so important, that it is a safe place to create. It's a safe place to collaborate. In fact, collaboration is encouraged. And when I think about the success that my father had at Bell Laboratories, right, which was a melting pot of backgrounds, demographics, genders over time, that they created some of the world's best, Nobel laureates and inventions. And it all happened because of this intersectionality and the support of the institution to encourage it. And so I think that we're on the cusp of something really exciting, and that my only advice would be keep running exactly in this direction and pulling as many folks as you can in. And that really comes down to listening and being in touch and understanding what people find interesting, because at the end of the day, the solution to probably some of our world's most difficult questions, specifically as they pertain to healthcare, those answers are in someone's brain that's right down the hall. And maybe all it requires is for them to talk to someone else and to feel encouraged and have that support. So I think there's something really exciting brewing in New Jersey. And I think there's something also to Jersey, as we are both natives. So, there's something there.
Yeah. And
I'd just like to follow up here just a bit, because I want to go back to mentorship, because mentoring and getting together is really important. When I joined Bell Labs, and I joined that company because of all of the ones that I interviewed, I saw more people at Bell Labs that looked like me that I wanted to be like when I grew up. And one of them was Dr. Lincoln Hawkins, and Link, lived very closely, I think, in Montclair, New Jersey, if I'm not mistaken. But Link's invention is considered the most money-saving patents ever, because he learned to cure polyethylene so that it wouldn't degrade under UV radiation, which allowed that to sheathe the cables of telephone lines and power lines that were sheathed by lead before Link. Well, Link turned out to be my mentor, and he taught me how to get through the maze at Bell Laboratories. He also nurtured my research by bringing me anything that he thought might be of interest to me. I continue the chain because I mentor a number of people for the same reason that I was mentored, because I wanted to be successful and I want these people to be successful. So in your program, make sure that the mentorship is strong when it comes to technology, because that is very, very important and will foster the development of new concepts much faster.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. And we will. We have, as we mentioned before, we have some mentoring programs, but I think we need to make sure that they're strongly linked to innovation and promoting that discovery philosophy. And thank you for sharing stories about, I totally agree with you. I think listening is such an underrated part of leadership. It's really, really an important piece. And I love what you had to say about really encouraging people and giving them confidence, because I think that's half the battle, if not 3/4 of the battle, right there. And the last thing I want to say is, we're proud that you guys are from New Jersey, and we have a tie to Bell Labs, because now it's been transformed into Bell Works, and we just had our board and leadership summit there, and we remarked about all the innovation and the discoveries that were made in that very facility that we had our board summit in just a couple weeks ago, and it kind of gave me the goosebumps a little bit when I thought about what was discovered there over the years. So I'm glad that we have that connection as well, and with Bell Labs, which is now Bell Works. I don't know if you've been back to see it, but it's really extraordinary. I think they've preserved what was the best of Bell Labs, but now it's kind of a mixed use commercial, retail, and conference space, and a lot of learnings are still happening on that campus, which we're thrilled about. So I can't thank you guys enough, really, for being here and sharing your thoughts and some really great lessons and best practices. We will. I know when people see this town hall, they'll be very not only impressed, but will be taking those lessons and applying them. But it's been a real pleasure to have you both on our show, on our town hall meeting.
Thank you.
Thank
The
you
pleasure
very
was
much.
ours.
It was very definitely so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This concludes today's TMRG Town Hall. Thank you for attending, and enjoy the rest of your day.